leaving a fantasy world, because I always saw football on TV, and I just, for some reason, thought it was stuck in television for like grown people in a distant land, and it wasn't something that I could do. And I remember going outside, I was like 7 years old, and we were playing football in the streets, just the normal sandlot stuff. And one of my friends, Dominique, he was 11 at the time, and he threw me a pass, and I was running for this ball, and I dove, and I caught the ball, but then I landed on the hood of a car. And then when I came back, I'm all excited, like, yeah, I caught the pass. And they're looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? Like, and then at that time, they were just laughing like, dude, you are so crazy, but you're fast. And he's like, you ever try football? And I was like, nah, I seen it on TV. And he's like, no, you can actually play right now. Long story short, my parents said as long as I did well in school, I was allowed to go and try out. So I remember going to my first practice and trying out. And I was a fast kid for my age, so that kind of stood out in talent. But I remember only having 2 sisters growing up and no brothers, getting into a huddle with a bunch of little boys from around the neighborhood and looking around like, these are like my little brothers right here. Like, this is the kind of team spirit that I don't have in my life. And what it gave me was esteem. It let me know that growing up in the hood, growing up in Compton, and gangs, and adversity, drugs, violence, all whispering or yelling at you on the daily, this was one lane that felt like it was peaceful. And I just ran with it. It was my escape, my solace, and it kept me out of a lot of circumstances that other friends fell victim to. So I would say identity, it gave me esteem, discipline, and then I started to realize that I can get more from this the more I give to it.
Yeah. My passion in soccer really just came from being active, and my mom signed me up for everything: ballet, piano, basketball. I have an older brother who treated me like his sibling, not like his little sister. So everything was a competition, everything. And the only thing to this day that I think I ever beat him in was just holding my breath underwater. That's it. But I remember, like, we timed it, and that was the one thing I could really beat him at. And so growing up, he had teammates that I would play with, and they treated me like just another guy on the field. And when it came down to being 12 years old and really committing my life to that was that transition of what's it going to be, both coaches for soccer or my ballet instructor. I was on point at that time. It was like, I need you here 5 days a week, or in my case, I had to drive 2 hours down to Seattle to play for a competitive team in order to take that opportunity to earn a scholarship to college. And we saw that as a path and a passion that I just wanted to really embrace, and it really came down to the team aspect of it. Just there is nothing like what you learn from your teammates and your coaches, and you learn the discipline, you learn how to lose, and how that failure is ultimately part of your success, and it changes the culture of this idea when you have a good team, of this idea of losing in this country is like, God, we don't want to lose. But we learn more from those losses than we do from winning, and I think that's what soccer has really, football, I want to change the culture of it, call it football again here. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about having we play with our feet?
Yeah, but your sport's bigger worldwide, so you're stepping down a little.
The culture of winning and losing, we're going to get to that next. This has a lot to do with what I feel and what a lot of people have talked about. Concussions end up happening, people playing through injuries because they want to win so much. But before we do that, AC, tell us your story.
Briefly, my story is fairly simple. 2 older brothers, older sister, all back there, in Portland. And so I was that same kind of kid, basically, that played every sport. And I really focused in on baseball, football, and basketball. Baseball, I loved. It was like my favorite sport. I retired, unfortunately, at the age of 12 because I kept getting hit by the ball. And so it's like, that's it. And right behind that, I stopped playing football because, you know, in Pop Warner at the time, my head got too big for the helmet. So I like, that's a wrap. And so that left nothing but basketball. And it really, the friends and playing in the neighborhood, everything you were saying earlier, I can relate to obviously all of that stuff, all right? But when I got to high school, I basically ran into, and those that who might be coaches here or you know coaches, the importance of that on educators in particular. My high school coach was a person who stopped me my sophomore year, 14 years old, and I really didn't have any direction on what I really wanted to do. I was just in school, hanging out with my guys, just being there. And I remember him stopping me outside of the library and saying that I have potential. I could actually get a scholarship if I really worked hard and changed the way I was thinking and just try to focus more. And I took those words like they were from God himself. And I thought this man was God because he was the winningest coach in the state of Oregon in high school basketball at the time. And so it set me on another motivation and path. And next thing you know, those things came true in college and then pros from there.
Well, good for us, right? Laker fans in the audience, good for us.
Yeah.
I'm going to add that in for Marcellus. One more jab at Marcellus. On a serious note, Marcellus, you said you spent 10 years in the league. And are you all familiar with Junior Seau? You know his story? Marcellus played with him. And for those who don't know his story, tell us a little bit about playing with him. And as a result, CTE, brain damage, he committed suicide. And your take on that whole situation.
Yeah, first introduced to Junior Seau as a fan. Up in Los Angeles, he's playing for USC. He was a beast on the football field. He had a motor that you didn't see often on the football field, and that's saying a lot, because a lot of guys work hard, a lot of guys give it their all, but he was a step above even that. I go to the Buffalo Bills. He's a San Diego Charger. As a free agent, I chose to go to the San Diego Chargers. And I remember walking in the locker room and having apprehension, because this is Junior Seau's team. This is his city. But I'm this big free agent that's getting all these headlines, and I haven't done one thing for this team, this community. And I remember shaking hands with everybody else on the team, and it didn't really mean the same until I got the approval of Junior Seau. And I remember him walking up to me, and he's like, "Buddy, welcome." And buddy to Junior was a funny word that we all started to realize what it really meant. Junior couldn't remember anyone's name. Okay. So he had this system of calling everyone buddy, even if he knew your name, just to play it off. So he never was in the position where he was like, "What's your name?" So everyone was buddy everywhere you went. So I remember him saying, "Buddy, welcome," and just opening up his arms to me and to the entire team. And from then, we had a great relationship. You fast forward, we played well. Team didn't do as well as expected. He goes to Miami. I'm still in San Diego. We see each other when we're retired. Now, Junior had a restaurant called Seau's. Very, very successful restaurant in San Diego. And he had his family, extended family, huge family. You just talk about a guy who was born and played in the same city. You could imagine how many people were still attached to him. And the positive qualities of that was the fact that he always had a support system. He loved to embrace everyone. But the gift also had the curse, and he never wanted to disappoint anybody. I mean, this guy will be sitting here right now having dinner with us, and it's supposed to be a team gathering, and a fan will come up, and Junior would get up and sign an autograph. Another fan will come up, sign an autograph. Another fan wants a picture. To the point where we're finished our meal, and he's still signing signing autographs, taking pictures, etc. And you never looked at it strangely until you realize, do you ever say no? Do you ever say enough? Do you ever say I don't have it? I see Junior at an event, this is about 3 months after he drove off a cliff, as they say, as he said. And I remember talking to him and really trying to read into it, like, is everything all right? Did you really drive off a cliff? And were you really asleep at the wheel? Or is there more to it? "Oh, no, buddy, I'm good. You know me, buddy, I'm all right. Just late night." Okay. We talk. And then we all get the news. And I remember being on the radio at the time, so I'm live on
The
air.
news that he committed suicide.
The news that he committed suicide. And I'm live on air, and I remember someone saying, hey, they're saying that Junior committed suicide. And I'm like, and I immediately go back to knowing him, and I immediately going back to talking to him just a few months before, face to face, and him saying, you know me, man, nothing's wrong, buddy, everything's all right. So I grabbed my phone, and I texted him. I said, I know he'll respond, because he'll tell me, dude, nothing's wrong, I'm okay, false reports. And as time was elapsing, you hear more and more unofficial reports, and then my teammates started hitting me up, and then I knew something must have been real. My response to it all was that I never met a more talented, great person in one person of being Junior Seau. I've never seen that much talent, have that much heart, and be that great a person. That combination was unique to Junior Seau. What drove Junior to that place, in my own conjecture, my own thoughts, that weight is heavy for everyone. No matter how strong you are, no matter how successful you are. What makes it even more difficult is when you don't actually assess your situation post-retirement and say that weight's too heavy.
But now we know that he suffered from CTE.